Well, I never thought I'd hear this from the CEO of one of the world's biggest and most successful car manufacturers. Jim Farley, Ford Chief Executive Officer, CEO, certainly gets my congratulations for being so open and honest. It is an amazing insight into the workings of Ford Motor Company. It also explains exactly why Ford has failed and why Ford has rolled back all of its EV production predictions and halted EV production altogether in general. It proves my previous videos were spot on. Dave Takes It On looks at the interview with Jim Farley. Well, a huge congratulations to Ryan Levinson with the Kilowatts, who are huge on X, as it's now known, previously Twitter, as those who don't follow it will still continue to call it for years to come. He caught Jim Farley for a one-to-one interview midway through an amazing 1,100-mile road trip in an F-150 Lightning. That's Ford's electric pickup. And during that interview, Jim revealed some utterly shocking and dramatic information. Let's get started with a bit of background and listen out on those clips for that interview and for some of those incredible admissions. Can you spot what most others in the media and the public seem to have totally missed? Ford sell more pickup trucks in the States than anything else. They reign supreme in that market and have been world leaders in America for decades. So their announcement of an EV version a few years ago was huge news. Ford had gathered a reported 200,000 pre-orders before removing the ability to order for any more from their website. The F-150 Lightning was launched in April 2022, just 18 months ago, and early models were snapped up. But production was slow, well, actually painfully appalling. With 200,000 pre-orders and their huge experience in mass production, they've managed to produce a little over 13,000 in the rest of 2022. And customer comments were not flattering. Well, the truck looked great, in fact better than all had expected, but the technology really sucked. It was built exactly the same as their ICE equivalent, steel chassis with frame on top, so it was really heavy. In order to get any range out of it, they simply installed an absolutely massive battery. The base model has around 100 kilowatt hours, top model's nearly 140 kilowatt hours. Oh, and not really close to the Hummer EV with an absolutely ridiculous 240 kilowatt hours, but huge and much bigger than nearly every other EV produced. That made it even heavier. Tesla tops out, by the way, at about 100 kilowatt hours. But their onboard charging infrastructure totally sucked, offering a maximum charging speed of 150 kilowatts when plugged into a 350 kilowatt charger. That was the maximum, but only ever hit anywhere near that for a very short time during the charging. Most of the session, it was hovering around the 100 kilowatt hours. And once it got above about 80% state of charge, this dropped like a stone to end up less than 10 kilowatts. Well, this condemned owners to spend well over an hour to charge it, even just to 80% in real life, and more like 2 hours if you want to reach 100%. And as for the humble 7 kilowatt home charger, forget off-peak charging, it would take nearly a whole day. Well, the pre-orders just disappeared. Dealers are left today with huge stock levels of unsold cars. I've said it before, even many of the ones Ford claimed to have sold were not really sold, just sitting in their dealers waiting for customers. So, 18 months later, Jim Farley decides to go on a 1,100-mile road trip from California through to Nevada. Well done him. Let's listen to a bit of that interview.
Just over a week ago, the CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, was out here in California driving an F-150 Lightning 1,100 miles through California to Nevada. And I actually got a chance to catch up with him at Laguna Seca during Monterey Car Week to ask him about what he learned along the way.
I took the trip because we're tripling Lightning production. As we speak, we're just finishing the Dearborn plant. We capacitized for 20,000 Lightnings. The demand was more like 150. We doubled the capacity to 50,000 a year. And now we just took the plant down for 2 months. We built no Lightnings for the last 2 months to finish all the retrofit to go to 150,000 units.
Incredible.
And as we do that, obviously we're going to go into a whole new customer base. All EVs prices are coming down.
You brought your prices down.
Yeah, because the average price paid at Lightning before we did this was like almost $90,000, and tripling the volume, we have to get the price to where there's a lot more mainstream customers who can afford it.
Sure.
So I did that just to kind of go and see. I think that's good leadership, practical leadership, to really listen and learn. And I learned a lot. I mean,
Well, I've dropped enough clues. Has anyone discovered the shocking dramatic information yet? Some might have, and, spoiler alert, it wasn't actually in that clip I've just played. It was way back in the opening bit of this video. Now, in the interview, Jim hits the nail right on the head. It's not range anxiety, it should be called charging anxiety.
I don't think I'll ever use the range anxiety phrase again, because what I saw was charging anxiety. And what I learned a lot is that as we move from the evangelists to the mainstream in EV, that's happened in China, that's happened in Europe, it has not happened here. We're getting into customers who are very uneducated and they don't have a lot of resources to learn. And we have a huge human problem to solve. We can build all the vehicles we want, we can make them profitable, but in the end of the day, if people don't understand how to handle the charging experience, how the vehicle will perform, the real world range and cold towing, things like that, especially for us, the vehicles we make, we have to do a better job.
EV customers just don't know how to charge. Well, they don't know enough about EVs in general. He said they needed a new way of thinking. Now, that also should give you a clue. He revealed that, as a result of initial shortcomings, they have now suspended production and are refitting the factory. Demand initially suggested a production rate of 20,000 models a year, but he now sees 150,000 a year will be needed. So they need a bigger factory, plus they're making a few upgrades. Well, the model they launched last April was mainly, in line with other EVs, top of the range. And far from being priced at $40,000 as advertised, it's ended up around $90,000, which Jim himself states is way too dear. Well, no kidding. Okay, let's put you out of your misery. Tesla launched their Roadster in 2008, and Elon made a huge fuss. He was seen driving one repeatedly and actually used one as his own company car. When Tesla launched the Model S in 2012, Elon switched to that model as his company car, later switching to the Plaid. He used it daily, covering thousands of miles, and new software and upgrades were tried out on his car first. He reported back success and failures to the factory so they could do more changes and more upgrades. Most of these were completed before the Model S hit full production. The rest were quickly adopted. Now he's been seen in a Cybertruck. Could that become his latest company car? Jim Farley drove the F-150 Lightning on his first road trip to include charging this month, 18 months after launch and several years after the first prototypes. For almost 3 years, Jim Farley never actually drove what he hoped was going to be his flagship product more than a few miles, and never got around to driving it a long distance, and never had to charge it. This road trip, he says, opened his eyes to some of the problems. That is a bombshell, but there is much more and worse. I do admire him for owning up, but he is the CEO. He didn't know about charging. He never until now tried it for himself, and didn't know that his customers knew an equally appalling nothing about charging. Well, before the Model S launched, Elon Musk had realised that customers would never buy his cars at the ridiculous prices he charged unless they could charge them quickly, reliably, easily and cheaply on a road trip. A car with no range was useless. He started his supercharger network at almost the same time as he started EV production. Well, Jim Farley gave charging barely a passing thought. Didn't give any thought to how his customers would use his truck or what they wanted. If I had to guess, I'd suggest he just asked the designers go off and make an F-150, but make it electric, not ICE. And Jim Farley, in another interview recently, ridiculed Tesla for their Cybertruck, calling it for yuppies in Silicon Valley, not a proper truck, while stating that Ford did make proper pickup trucks for proper working people. We understand our market and our customers, he proudly said. Really, Jim? There are so many other reveals in this interview.
A year and a half ago, we started having this debate about the plug itself. Whether this committee design plug is competitive with the Tesla plug. And, we all started having plug failures and we'll run them over and they're broken and all sorts of stuff happened. And it became really clear to all of us as leaders, that's a better solution. Yeah. It was engineered better. I hate to say it, but it was.
Okay, awesome.
So my driver's like, Navigator's really nice. And I'm not sure, Jim, we go a lot of miles. Why do we have to do this Lightning? I said, because this is really important for the company.
There are so many other reveals in this interview. His driver, note he has a driver, while Elon seems to mostly drive himself. Or should that be his full self-driving system drives him? Did you hear that his driver, when told he was going on an 1,100-mile road trip, tried to talk him out of it? Wanted to take a gas-powered Explorer, not the Lightning EV, because they were going a long way. Well, for those who want it, I'll leave a link to the full interview in the description below, so you can hear it all for yourself. It's not long, but it really is an absolute revelation into the thinking at Ford. Their failures are legion. He reveals that the CCS2 socket regularly failed, so he began talks with Tesla nearly 2 years ago, then stopped. Why stop, Jim? Surely you either fix the problem yourself or buy a solution from someone else. You don't just stop, leave the problem out there. He got complaints about charging speed and did nothing. He was also forced into a full F-150 Lightning vehicle recall involving around 16,000 cars, all they had made, and is now being investigated for apparently not even fixing the issue. So what is happening now? Well, he said they have to shut down production to allow for a massive increase in production capacity from around 20,000 a year to 150,000 a year. But my question is, will his customers buy them? Has he already destroyed their faith and loyalty beyond repair? Well, before ramping up production, he simply must first fix the range and charging issues. A Tesla Model S adds 200 miles in 15 minutes. The Cybertruck is about to launch, and I would suggest the range will be well over 300 miles, and charging at the new V4 chargers now being installed will probably be less than 15 minutes to 80%. The price is not yet announced, but public opinion puts the launch models, not the base models, at around 50 to 60,000. Nowhere near the 90,000 Jim was trying to sell F-150s for, didn't sell. Well, Ford is in serious trouble. If this F-150 Lightning relaunch fails, if he doesn't fix the issues, if he can't get the price right down, then the dealers will not sell them. Ford will fail at EVs and pickups, and Tesla will scoop the market. Don't look to GM, they're also in serious trouble. Murray Berry announced the GM Silverado EV last year at a price supposed to be launching at $40,000. And they launched it this year. It is officially launched, but you can't get one yet. Only a trickle are coming off the production line, with main production now likely to start next summer, 2024. And the starting price has now risen from an exciting $40,000 to an expected and totally unaffordable $78,000. Whether or not Cybertruck succeeds, I believe the EV pickups offered by legacy automakers are already finished. They'll never become mainstream, never prop up the balance sheets for profitability, never compel all existing pickup truck owners to flock to the dealers to try one for themselves. Tesla Cybertruck will. Well, it may not sell. By guarantee, thousands will flock to Tesla showrooms to see one for themselves and get a test drive. Maybe Tesla's pre-order waiting list will also disappear. And my prediction is the opposite. that the Cybertruck will sweep the field. People will try them and love them and buy them. They'll quickly become a status symbol, even for those who don't need a pickup at all. Just look at the Hummer EV. It's owned probably more by drug dealers than builders. Or is that just me and watching too many films? Well, thank you, Jim Farley, for being honest, but your customers and the EV world needs action. They need and deserve a compelling, affordable, electric-powered, mass-market, practical pickup truck. I totally support Ford and GM in their desires to produce compelling EVs. I just think they have no hope in hell of making them. Ever. I'm Dave.